No, Mr. Briquette, I have not forgotten. I was thinking that you seem to have forgotten the phrase separation of church and state, but the one thing I did forget was just how divisive and dishonest and distasteful someone like you can be. I've sat here today and listened to you pander to these people, but you don't actually care about them, or you wouldn't be sitting here reinforcing their ignorance and prejudices.
You heard that, caller. She just called you ignorant and prejudiced.
I do not think everyone in America is ignorant. Far from it. But we are today probably the most uneducated, underread, and illiterate nation in the Western Hemisphere, which makes it all the more puzzling to me why the biggest question on your small mind is whether or not little Johnny is going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. I'll tell you something else, Mr. Briquette. I have had it up to here with you and your phony issues and your Yankee Doodle yakking. I am sick and tired of being made to feel that if I am not a member of a little family with 2.4 children who goes just to Jerry Falwell's church and puts their hands over their hearts every morning, that I am unreligious, unpatriotic, and un-American, because I have news for you, Mr. Briquette. All liberals are not kooks any more than all conservatives are fascists. And the last time I checked, God was neither a Democrat nor a Republican. And just for your information, yes, I am a liberal, but I am also a Christian. And I get down on my knees and pray every day on my own turf, on my own time. And one of the things that I pray for, Mr. Briquette, is that people with power will get good sense. And people with good sense will get power. And that the rest of us will be blessed with the patience and the strength to survive the people like you in the meantime.
I'm Corina Monteran, and welcome to Her Salty Words. Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Zoe Kelly. If you haven't watched part 1, check it out on my YouTube channel, Why You Gotta Be So Salty, or type Her Salty Words, and salty is spelled S-A-L-T-I, words, into the search bar of your podcast platform. There you will find all the episodes for this podcast. And while you're there, click subscribe and give 5-star rating so that I can hopefully one day turn this from a one-woman solo podcast to a whole bunch more humans. Let's introduce Zoe Kelly again. Zoe is an actress, producer, director, teacher. She's on a mission to find ways to serve the community by sharing knowledge she's gained and experiences she's had. She seeks ways to inspire and support the women around her and provide space so that those who are underrepresented have a platform, such as women of color, LGBTQI+, etc. Now, I do want to give a trigger warning for part 2 of this episode. We will be talking about sexual assault, violence, addiction, abortion, and the like. If any of these result in a trigger, please take a moment to self-care. To ensure you are not surprised when it happens within the episode, I'm going to give a heads up with this sound effect. This will play before and after the parts of the discussion occur. If you need additional support or are seeking additional information regarding any of the information that we give or discuss, please go to rainn.org, RAINN.org, or call 800-656-4673. And please make sure to take care of self first. This episode will be waiting for you when you are ready and able. Before we return to the interview with Zoe, I'd like to touch base on some important laws that are passing and or are being overturned in Idaho and the country regarding reproductive rights and the woman's right to choose. On March 14th of this year, Idaho passed a veto-proof Fetal Heartbeat Preborn Child Protection Act, which bans abortion after 6 weeks and allows the father, sibling, grandparent, aunt, uncle of the fetus to bring legal action against the medical professional who performed the abortion. Here's a clip where legislators are discussing this.
I understand that someone who has committed a rape would not be able to sue if an abortion were to take place. would a family member of said rapist be able to sue? Would they have standing?
Down from 21.
Thank you. If it is the parents, siblings, aunts and uncles, grandparents, then yes.
Same question then for incest as well?
Down 21.
Thank you. Yes.
So if I am raped and choose to have an abortion and my rapist has 10 siblings, is there anything to preclude all of them and their spouses from bringing a lawsuit for $20,000 each?
Down from 21.
I'm not sure their spouses are included in that list, but no.
Idaho is the first state to essentially mirror the fetal heartbeat law that Texas put into effect last September. In the Texas law, anyone in the United States can bring legal action against anyone who helped a pregnant woman get an abortion. Under the Idaho law, though, a doctor is not allowed to perform an abortion on a pregnant woman when a fetal heartbeat has been detected, except in the case of a medical emergency, rape, or incest. Planned Parenthood said in a statement, Idaho's anti-abortion lawmakers ignored public opinion and rushed through this legislation, looking to capitalize on the U.S. Supreme Court's failure to block Texas's ban. They added, the bill's sponsors and supporters have even explicitly stated their desire for Idaho to be the next Texas. Now, something to note about these laws. Majority of the lawmakers pushing this through are men, and mostly white men. Texas's near-abortion ban gives any citizen $10,000 to sue anyone seeking an abortion. And in Idaho, not wanting to be outdone, one-upped Texas and offers $20,000 to the family members of the man who impregnates the woman, should the woman seek an abortion. This means that if the man has 3 brothers, 12 sisters, a mom, a stepmom, stepdad, grandfather, grandmother, in-laws, they could potentially each sue the woman seeking an abortion as well as the healthcare provider who performs the abortion up to 4 years after the abortion was performed. 4 years. Although the Idaho law includes an exception for medical emergencies for pregnancies that occur through rape or incest, the exception only applies if there is documentation, such as a police report. This is concerning because of how rape is already processed, addressed, the backlog of rape kits, how the system is designed to side with the rapist, the lack of urgency or concern from law enforcement in finding the perpetrator. But please, let's make sure that should a rapist be found not guilty, let them have the right to sue the woman whom they assaulted and collect $20,000. Let's talk about that 6-week heartbeat that is surrounded by an underdeveloped ecosystem of nerve endings and cells en route to a not yet for many more weeks viable baby that may or may not be able to live once it exits the placenta. Sara Horvath, an OBGYN with the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, states, detecting a fetal heartbeat can be a sign that there is a pregnancy developing, and that's a sign we use to reassure people. Jennifer Kerns, who's an OBGYN at UC San Francisco and Director of Research in Obstetrics and Gynecology at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, asserts, at 6 weeks, the embryo is forming what will eventually develop into mature systems. There is an immature neurological system and there's a very immature cardiovascular system. She addresses the specific 6-week abortion ban. She states, it's a group of cells with electrical activity. That's what the heartbeat is at that stage of gestation. We are in no way talking about any kind of cardiovascular system. In 1984, when technology was barely in its gestational period of tracking the development of an embryo, researchers were excited to pick up fetal cardiac activity at between 41 and 43 days of gestation. That's 6 weeks. They described it as a tiny blinking, flashing, and a rocking echo with a regular rhythm. Jennifer Horvath explains, what's really happening at that point is that our ultrasound technology had gotten good enough to be able to detect electrical activity in a rudimentary group of cells. 1984. Think about that. In 1984, we barely had the technology to hear a heartbeat, and the lawmakers want to give a group of cells personhood and rights of a living person based on a tiny, blinking, flashing, and a rocking echo with a regular rhythm. That Janet Rossant, a senior scientist and chief of research emeritus at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, describes, is just helping to encourage the development of an organized vascular and circulatory system. A prerequisite for future viability, but not sufficient alone. But hey, what do the experts know about the development of a baby? We have lawmakers, and by lawmakers, I mean the GOP, who are not doctors or scientists, who are going to lead us on this righteous path to God's will. Not only will they force a woman to carry a baby to term, they will criminalize the abortions. Check out this clip.
This is a homicide statute. What this bill does is to specifically amend the crime of homicide and the crime of criminal battery to enable the state to charge people, including the pregnant person, the pregnant mother, at any stage of gestation from the moment of fertilization without the need for implantation. Yes. Without the need for implantation.
So a group of cells that cannot yet take a breath on its own, suck on a mother's breast, piss in a diaper, is more protected than the life of a woman. And I'm not saying this to be crass or devalue a potential baby. I'm saying this because a group of cells is not yet a baby, and making the potential of viability more valuable and important than an actual life, that is a contributing member of society, makes no sense. If the mother dies, who will take care of the baby? Adoption, you say? Yes. Let's traumatize this possible human more by putting it into a system that essentially human traffics children in plain sight. The father? Yeah, because we have an excellent record of how fathers show up. And for the fathers that do, studies show that because they receive higher pay, they will inherently be more successful in raising children as a single parent than a mother. This is also because men are praised for taking on the responsibility of taking care of children, thus receiving additional support and understanding compared to mothers. What would it look like if the mother received the same support and economic opportunity? Because let's be clear, the purpose of these laws is not to ensure life at conception. It's to ensure control over a woman's body. If the GOP truly cared about life, then every pregnant woman would receive universal health care for pre- and postnatal care, fully paid family leave, free childcare, and the opportunity to return to work at full pay. Same position without bias, and more importantly, have equal pay for equal work to that of her male counterpart. Let's also be really clear about the ultimate goal for the GOP in these abortion ban laws that are popping up like a Mattress Firm outlet on every street corner. They want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And based on the recent leak, it worked. On May 2nd, just a few days ago, Politico published the draft. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito. If and when abortion is banned, it will open the floodgates to overturn rights that women, people of color, LGBTQI, transgender, and all marginalized communities, etc. have. The right to contraception.
This is what we said. This is what we fucking said. The ruling isn't even official yet, and Idaho's like, can we get rid of birth control now?
It will criminalize the act as a homicide.
Louisiana's new House Bill 813 would make any abortion after fertilization equivalent to homicide. Louisiana House Bill 813, called the Fetal Personhood Bill, made it out of the Republican committee 7-2 last night. It would make abortion a crime of homicide from the moment of fertilization. And if you were wondering, Louisiana still enforces capital punishment for homicide. Critics rightly point out that this would also criminalize in vitro fertilization and perhaps some form of birth control. Moreover, House Bill 813 makes no exception for minors, for rape, for incest, or for ectopic pregnancy.
By banning contraception, it will put the woman in a position to seek a back alley abortion, which will then put her in the line of fire to be criminalized and sued, not to mention her life at risk for infection and or possible death. But what would it matter? She would die anyway if she was criminalized with the death penalty. Once criminalized, the woman would lose her right to vote, leaving voting rights to a male majority. But why wait for a woman to be criminalized to take away her voting rights? Eric Erickson tweeted after the draft was leaked, "My big issue with Roe has always been that abortion shouldn't be a constitutional right, but left to each state under federalism. But given the hysterics and histrionics coming out of Dobbs, I'm starting to think we need to repeal the 19th Amendment." Eric is not misogynistic at all.
Here's another conservative talking about taking away people's rights.
I have to double down on this. You know, they care so much about everybody voting in democracy, and it's like if you went back to the founding, and the founding fathers would have said something to the effect of like, yeah, women and probably feminine men shouldn't be allowed to vote because then their chaotic nature would manifest throughout society.
That's right.
And you would say, well, no, that's not right. That's mean. You're probably an incel. And then the founding father would just say, oh, well, do you have any evidence from your time that would contradict this? And you'd just be like, no, not exactly. Not exactly. So it would seem that they were actually right.
Because, let's be real. Menstruating women who create and birth humans are too hysterical and emotional to properly know how to vote accordingly. But we are good enough to shove dicks in our vaginas and get pregnant. Wait. We can't even do that right, because when an unwanted pregnancy occurs after a man ejaculates his orgasm into the woman's uterus, she's a slut and a whore for opening her legs too wide. What a bitch. Justice Alito argues, the court has long been reluctant to recognize rights that are not mentioned in the Constitution. We must ask what the 14th Amendment means. The clear answer is that the 14th Amendment does not provide the right to an abortion. So, if you zone in on what he's saying, we must ask what the 14th Amendment means. That's opening the door for reinterpretation. For a quick refresher, the 14th Amendment has 4 sections in it. Section 1 states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privilege or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. One of Justice Alito's argument within the 14th Amendment is that the word woman is not recognized or included. Men are represented in Section 2 with the use of the word male. Although the word person is used within the amendment, which can be applied to both male and female, that wasn't enough to convince Justice Alito that women have the right to privacy and privilege to choose when it comes to abortion care. This is why the ERA, the Equal Rights Act, is so important, to ensure that women are represented through language in the Constitution. And not just the language of women, but also the marginalized communities and people of color, specifically women of color. Because if Justice Alito is using the 14th Amendment to justify overturning Roe v. Wade, all rights previously protected under this amendment are up for grabs. And I'm going to list them. This is going to take a little bit because there's a lot of them. And I thought about, reading just a few, but I think it's important to read all of them, to take the time and give the space of how much impact this will have on these other important laws. The first one, marrying someone of a different race. Loving versus Virginia, 1967. Birth control, Griswold versus Connecticut, 1965. Einstat versus Bard, 1972, and others. Now, this birth control is already happening. I've already shown some clips about how they're already starting in Idaho as well, wanting to ban birth control and IUDs. Women with young children who want to work, Phillips versus Martin Marietta, 1971. Women's ability to preside over legal documents involving their kids, Reed versus Reed, 1971. Housing and benefits for female members of the armed services, Frontiero versus Richardson, 1973. Advertising jobs that specify only men can apply. Pittsburgh Press versus Pittsburgh Commission of Human Relations, 1973. Women who get pregnant on the job and are fired. Cleveland BOE versus LaFleur, 1974. Women who make less than men for the same work. Corning Glass Works versus Brennan, 1974. And we know, on this one, as a side note, we know employers still break this law. It's repeatedly broken. Women's right to serve on juries, Taylor versus Louisiana, 1975. JEB versus Alabama, 1994. Social Security benefits for women, Weinberger versus Weisenfeld, 1975. Califano versus Goldfarb, 1977. Unemployment benefits for pregnant women, Turner versus Department of Employment Security, 1975. Pregnant women's exclusion from employer health and disability plans, General Election versus Gilbert, 1976. Now this one ensures that pregnant women have insurance, but it does not require, at that time, to provide pregnancy benefits within the insurance. And the reason I say this is because back in the 90s, I worked in the health insurance benefits with John Alden. And I remember how odd I felt and thought that it was that an employer could exclude pregnancy benefits from their employees. So, although this makes sure that women have the right to employee health benefits, it does not require the employer to add pregnancy benefits. So thus, it leaves the cost of birth of the child or children to the woman or the families. So, it begs the question. I mean, all these wonderful things. Why would a woman not want to have a baby? I mean, it's just so hard to understand why she wouldn't want to have a baby with such a great environment to have one in. Just so confused. So, moving on. Women's right to get jobs traditionally held by men. Dothard versus Rawlinson, 1977. Pregnant woman's right to advance in the workplace. Nashville Gas versus Sadie, 1977. Women of color's access to higher education. Regents of University of VAV, Bach, 1978. Fisher versus University of Texas, 2016. Benefits for unemployed moms, Califano versus Westcott, 1979. A wife's property within a marriage, Kirchberg versus Feenstra, 1980. Sexual harassment in the workplace, Meritor Savings Bank versus Vinson, 1986. Pregnant women who choose to work dangerous jobs, UAW versus Johnson Controls, 1991. Sexual harassment and abuse in secondary schools, Franklin versus Gwinnett County Public Schools, 1992. Gebser versus Ligo Vistol ISD, 1998. Davis versus Monroe County BOE, 1999. Women who want to attend a state-funded college of their choice, U.S. versus Virginia, 1996. Women's testimony in domestic violence, Davis versus Washington, 2006. The right to same-sex marriage, Obergfell versus Hodges, 2015. Something important to note is that the omission of women, people of color, LGBTQ, transgender is a feature, not a malfunction in the amendments. Now, Hillary Clinton said it best in her speech on September 5th, 1995, at the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women. If there is one message that echoes from this conference, it is that the human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights. As long as discrimination and inequities remain so commonplace around the world, as long as girls and women are valued less, fed last, overworked, underpaid, not schooled, and subjected to violence in and out of their homes, the potential of human family to create a peaceful, prosperous world will not be realized. Replace the words woman or girl with women of color, people of color, LGBTQI, transgender, etc. communities, and it is applicable. as well. It's interchangeable. Take care of the woman, you take care of the human. Take the right away from the woman, you take the right away from humanity. This is why it's important to lead with Black Lives Matter. Because when Black lives matter, then all lives matter. You take care of a Black life, you take care of all life. This goes hand in hand with women's rights. Taking away abortion rights is not the GOP's endgame. Jessica Mason Piclo explained clearly when she was interviewed on Gaslit Nation podcast with Sarah Kendzior and Andrea Chalupa, titled The Assault on Reproductive Rights. Here's a clip.
In Texas right now, as of the time that we are having this conversation, we are 100 days into SB 8 being in effect. That is a bill that bans nearly all abortion in the state and empowers private citizens to act as bounty hunters to enforce this mechanism. It took it out of the hands of the state and empowered private citizens. This doesn't stop with abortion. This will go to voting rights. This will go to trans rights. This will go to marriage equality. The Texas lawmakers Republicans have already said, do we really have to recognize marriage equality? So it's anti-democratic in that if you can make the argument that you can roll back rights in one area, the government can make that in others. And we're seeing that. And we know that because it's all tied up in the same line of case law.
So if the government can make an argument to roll back precedent law in one area, it opens the door to the other. Statesman.com published an article on May 6, 2022 that states, Republican Greg Abbott wants Texas to challenge a 1982 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that requires states to offer free public education to all children, including those of undocumented immigrants.
Well, we're talking about our rights, freedom of speech, the right to bear arms. We're talking about our constitutional rights. Do you know how many amendments there are? There have been 27 ratified amendments, right? Okay. Roe versus Wade is in the 14th Amendment. Do you know what that amendment is? That is former slaves' citizenship, right? That's our citizenship. That's our due process. That's our equality clauses. And what we're talking about are women's rights to their own bodies. And so if we're cool with taking that away, the question becomes, are we cool with taking away rights now? Are we cool with infringing on rights all of a sudden? Because this is where it starts.
The continued reinterpretation of the 14th Amendment can also kill the birthright citizenship and possibly revoke rights as a natural citizenship. I'm a naturalized citizen of the United States. I was born in Romania and immigrated here via my parents in the late 1970s. When Trump came into office, one of the first things I thought was, could my citizenship be revoked? This is not exaggerated or a hysterical thinking. This is a possibility. The 14th Amendment is in real time being reinterpreted. Everything is on the table. I am literally losing my rights as a woman. Same-sex marriage is in jeopardy. LGBTQI+ and transgender rights are at risk. Critical race theory is now being prohibited from being taught in schools. Books are being banned. The right to a free education is being challenged. Why would I not think my citizenship would be up for grabs? To not consider it or think it a possibility is ignorant. Now, some may say, I'm a white female. My privilege alone would spare me. And that's correct. I have privilege. And by the time it might affect me, all of this may be taken care of or prevented. But I'm not going to wait and take that chance and assume I won't be affected. Women of color, transgender, LGBTQI+, undocumented immigrants, and everyone that falls under the underrepresented and marginalized category will be affected first. This is why it's important to fight alongside these issues that impact them first, because by taking care of them, I will be taken care of and everybody else. And if men, and by men I mean straight, mostly white men, and this is not meant as an insult, white men benefit from their privilege more than any other group. Just simply look at who's passing these laws. If you think that taking rights away won't come for you, I encourage you to watch this clip.
We sincerely apologize for intruding. More the merrier. In bearing witness, we pray with you for a fruitful outcome.
They used to do this in the first months of Gilead to the households that resisted the ceremony. They declared it unnecessary.
It's mere formality, Mrs. Lawrence. Shoring up those households that have had difficulties with handmaids.
Bearing witness ensures that every member of the family is performing their role. Any deviation could tip the scales to failure.
We'll sit here quietly for 20 minutes and we'll go down.
We can't just sit here.
We can play canasta. Got some cards up here.
The doctor is going to check me. Afterwards, for the proof that there was a ceremony. You swore we would never.
We need to be quiet. We don't have to do anything. Quiet.
Stop. You need to stop. We don't have to do anything.
Sir. Yes, we do. You helped to create this world. How long did you think it would be before it came for you?
Every government makes room for exceptions.
This one ends with both of you on the wall.
Don't wait for someone to ask you.
How long did you think it would be before it came for you?
Although this all seems heavy and hopeless, it's important to remember that there is still time to prevent this from happening. I shared a clip from Gaslit Nation podcast. That is an excellent podcast to follow and use as a resource of information. Sarah Kenzier and Andrea Chalupa are experts on authoritarian states. They also provide an action guide on gaslitnation.com that provides a pathway to engage in the community to create positive change and challenge, prevent, and stop current lawmakers from passing corrupt policies. We as women need to come together and share our stories and support each other and keep the conversation going about women's rights. This is why I started this podcast, to get our stories out, to get our viewpoints out. All women, all walks of life, our voices matter too. Men, we need you as allies. We are stronger with you in these matters because men will listen to other men more so than women. It's important that you show up for the women in your lives and support their choices. Listen to women's stories and what choices they had to make in order to function within a patriarchal society. Fight alongside them for rights and educate men on how to see women as equals. If we come together, we are stronger and can get more done. I want to end my opening with this clip because at Empress Onyx, that's her I forget what it's called, but that's how you can look her up on TikTok and maybe on Twitter. But at Empress Onyx brings up some points worth thinking about.
So I have been researching one of our future discussions, which will be on forced sterilization. Okay? I was doing my research, came across the story of a Latina physician who had gone into the hospital for acute appendicitis, and they sterilized her. Right? She finds out that there are Black women and there are Native American women with similar stories. They go in for one thing and they get sterilized. She finds out about the sisters who were sterilized at 12 and 14 because they lied. The hospital lied to the mother and said, oh, no, you're just consenting, for us to put them on birth control. She learns these things and she wants to end this practice of forced sterilization. So she starts lecturing. She travels the country lecturing, advocating for the end of this practice. And what she learns this from white women who come up after the lectures complaining because they can't get sterilized, complaining because they have to wait too long. The wait list is too long for them to get sterilized, that they're flat out told no, right? They have to jump through a ridiculous amount of hoops just to get sterilized. And this physician realized that they made it harder for white women to get sterilized, but they came up with any reason under the sun to sterilize women of color. Now, I want you to think about that story in light of what is most likely going to happen, and that's the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
And now, here is part 2 of my interview with Zoe Kelly. That question of, okay, well, what did Zoe want to know 3 years ago? Like, that's a really smart question to kind of pose and explore on.
Yeah.
And see, to make those videos. Like, that's pretty good. Makes me think.
Yeah, then you have a built-in audience. There are people who are ahead of you and people who are learning what you have already learned, as far as your knowledge goes. Yeah. And so it's like, why don't you grab the hand of another young actress and help her along instead of just making stupid, meaningless content? And I've found much more joy and satisfaction in my social media since taking that standpoint of, instead of being like, oh, I'm feeling cute today, I'm going to post a cute pic. It's now like, how can I be of service to someone else? Yeah. This has just been like a message that keeps coming into my life. Like, how can you serve other people? Yeah. Because naturally I'm a very selfish person. I just am. Like, it doesn't matter why. I think it was definitely, my therapist says that it was a coping mechanism. But, it doesn't matter. What matters is, like, now I have the choice to either, just be a robot and continue doing what I've been doing, or grow as a person. And so I'm choosing, well, how can I be of service to other people? Yeah. And it is paying off, like that commercial I got cast in was because of my content on social media. Not my self-tape, not my demo reel, not my headshot. It was the Monologue Mondays that I've been putting up and putting a shitload of work into. Yeah, yes. And this director was like, you can act. I want you. You can't tell if someone can act from a one-line self-tape. Yeah. You really can't. No, I agree with you there. And so that was very, very validating. That is so wonderful to hear. And the amount of work that does go into those, I think that there is sometimes an assumption, oh, you could just post, and maybe for some, they can just do that and then do the 1-2 and get 1.2 million, likes or whatnot. But I agree, when you really want to put something of quality that has depth, that is of service, it does take time, and that work does pay off, and this will only continue to grow. And it's so wonderful how you're exploring all those parts and just continue to expand in it, and listening to the direction that you're like, I think I need to go this way. Yeah. And then the selfish aspect that you brought up, how interesting you saying that, because that doesn't come across necessarily, you know what I mean? That I don't know, I find it fascinating. I'm trying to be more cognizant of interesting. My brother said, you say interesting a lot. And I'm like, but it's interesting. Isn't that interesting? So I'm really going to look back on all this and be like, God, interesting. So what's it called? Switch up the words a little bit. I don't know, whatever. Like, my brother's going to listen to this anyway. But I really appreciate the sort of self-reflection in that, because the way that you speak on being of service and coming to that point makes me think there's an empathic quality to you as well, because you're able to sort of read and
taking that time in your spiritual journey as well. Do you find that you have some empath qualities?
Yeah, I definitely, for a long time, identified as like an empath. I think through, therapy and self-reflection, I learned that those traits as well are a product of the environment that I grew up in. I had to be very aware of micro expressions for my own survival. And so I am really good at reading a room. I am pretty good at understanding where people are at in their thought process and their feelings. Maybe not their thought process, but their emotional experience. And I think that also contributed to my acting experience in my younger years, where I was able to harness that emotional state of being and live in the emotionality of storytelling. Yeah, I do think I'm pretty empathetic, but up until pretty recently, a lot of my inner dialogue, conscious or subconscious, usually subconscious, was, what can I get out of this situation? How does this benefit me? Is this good enough for me? This really counterproductive thoughts and paradigm. And really, honestly, pretty recently, I've had a really big spiritual awakening and paradigm shift of, I need to be of service to people. That's my purpose in life. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve others. And, that's been a big reason why I've been saying yes to a lot of projects that maybe I would have said no to before. And, the way that I wanted to approach this podcast with you, instead of, very easily when someone asks you to be on a podcast, you can, in the past, I'm using the general you, but I want to focus on me in my not selfishness. Oh my God. But my experience, strength, and hope is that I was able, in the past, I was more apt to say, oh, my ego, I deserve to be on this podcast. I'm amazing, but in a very shallow, toot my own horn way. Whereas today I was like, how can I be of service to the listeners? How can I be of service to you? And I think that has made me be able to be more vulnerable and more open and honest than I normally would be if my ego was leading the show. And I think that authenticity has been serving me and will continue to serve me more than selfishness.
Yeah. Well, and coming to the listening to the sort of prompting, be of service, demonstrates that level of spiritual growth as well. The active listening in it, and then the act behind it. Was it a small events that led to that spiritual awakening? Was that something that occurred last year, during the pandemic, or how recent, and sort of how did all that come about to where you're like, yep, and then that process of embracing and deciding, yeah, it reminds me a little bit of a hero's journey, but from a feminine standpoint, because the feminine hero journey is a little bit different than the hero journey, although some aspects are the same, but that where you're like, okay, I'm not going to fight this anymore. I'm going to step into it.
Yeah, I was experiencing some personal struggles with some very bad habits. I was abusing alcohol pretty severely for about 2 years, but it really came to a head in about January, February. And I had a lot of waking up in literal gutter moments, and I realized that if I continued on that path, that I probably wasn't going to make it for much longer. And so I had to ask for help. And, when you have a substance abuse disorder, there's a lot of stigma that comes along with it. And there is a surprising amount of red tape in getting help.
Wow.
Unfortunately, my options were very limited when I came to the understanding that I was powerless over my habits. And, everyone knows, it's very common knowledge about AA, which is a very spiritual based program, which I have been attending and attempting to work. But, I haven't been a very spiritual person in my life. Kind of ebbs and flows. I never had a religious upbringing. My mom's an atheist. I identified as an atheist for a long time. And so getting help in a spiritual realm has been really challenging for me. But I was able to get my doctor on board with prescribing a medication that helps you not want to drink. It actually uncouples your hippocampus, where in 10% of the population you get, and I believe I am part of this 10%, I only receive euphoria from drinking when my blood alcohol level is increasing. And so that causes a tendency to overdrink, because if I have one drink, it's kind of annoying. I want to keep chasing that high. And so it was causing me to drink a really dangerous amount of alcohol pretty regularly. And I'm really fortunate, after a lot of struggle and trials, I was able to get on this medication that is curbing any cravings for alcohol and also uncoupling euphoria and alcohol.
Wow.
So in the future, I won't associate pleasure with booze, which is like crazy that science has come this far.
Yeah.
Because back even in the 1930s, it was like, well, you better pray your problems away.
Yeah.
Which really...
Praying to... what you mean?
How effective is that?
Yes.
Because I've woken up hungover many a time saying, please don't let me drink again. If anyone's listening out there, God or whatever. And I would just do it again and do it again and do it again. And so, through these struggles and through my experience, I have been starting to pray. I mean, I use air quotes, but I have been.
Yeah.
Who I'm praying to or what I'm praying to, I have no idea. And I also don't really care, because I've found a new serenity and a new peace inside myself after removing the alcohol from my life and just trying to embrace being authentic and being comfortable in my own skin. That is powerful enough for me right now. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense, but
it did make sense. I so appreciate you sharing that, because it's so important. Because in the end, you really have to come back to yourself. So that higher power is within every single human. We all have it, and it exists, and it's just about returning to our higher power. So when I hear you say that you pray, what pops up is that meditation, that serenity, that oneness with yourself, and that is the higher power. That in my spiritual journey, I guess, coming out of my sort of very strict, I say it's a cult-like type of religious background, but where it's really refrained. And I think even as a society, we step away from going within, and it's more everything get up. What can we get on the outside? But then when you do the journey like you described, with where you had to remove that obstacle and then really go within, I see that oneness, that sort of that prayer mode, not in a religious way, but more of I am one with the universe, with the higher power. I am the higher power. The higher power is me.
Yes.
And whatever. And it doesn't need a name, I think, and I think there is always a desire to label something or identity, and it can just be and exist, and so it's I love hearing all the different journeys and ways that we can come to that realization within ourselves, and the amount of power that we have within ourselves, and how that can then be used for service.
Absolutely.
It just, that's just, again, just more deliciousness. Like it's like I taste like what I'm experiencing and what you're sharing. I'm experiencing in my senses, like not just feeling, it's making me want to bust out and cry. Like I'm trying to hold it in and be all like cool and like, yeah, I can interview and this tear will not fall. But inward, I'm just like, gulp it, but it's, those are the beautiful moments of sharing and making connections with humanity, is being able to experience those things on a non-artificial chemical level. You experience it in a very natural form. Yeah. And you can take it with you, and it stays with you in a much longer way than when it passes through the brain, and it's that euphoria is not gone. It's in a very spiritual way still there, because you can carry it with you. So it's such a joy to hear.
Yeah, I've definitely, that resonates with me, feeling closer to myself, because in my experience, the alcohol was really deadening any connection I had with something as simple as my hunger, and something as profound as my deepest desires and goals in life. It really was a poor Band-Aid over a lot of things that I still have to work through, a lot of trauma I still need to heal, but it was a hindrance. It was not a helper, at least towards the end there. Yeah. So I'm really, really grateful to be sober and to be able to share my experience with other people in hopes to provide a little maybe ease or solidarity with someone who may be experiencing the same thing.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the alcohol, in that form, in a drink form. It can be in a different form of whatever substance is being used, and it doesn't even have to be a substance. It could be a relationship or a person or, emotional, whatever that may be. It's same content, just different packaging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Compulsions come in many different sizes.
Yes. Different bows, different, zigzags, stars, beautiful paintings.
Oh yeah.
And so let's kind of dive into, since we're on that human connection type of thing, how did you connect with your husband? And how is that process? And how is that process in terms just from like a female perspective? You're connecting, you're partnering now, and how are you growing together?
Yeah. Our relationship, I mean, we have a very cute how we met story, but my husband's name's Elliot Norton. He owns Lower Gentry Studios with his brother. I'm a part of that now. But before I was a part of it, I auditioned for his first feature film, Brown Truck. And he cast me. We made a movie, and I was just in awe and in love with how intelligent both of these Norton brothers are. I mean, Chuck and Elliot are just brilliant and kind and authentic and funny. And it was just, when I was in their presence, I felt so safe and just so seen, and just like I had found my home. And, I knew when the movie wrapped that I didn't want to stop spending time with them, and so we shortly thereafter, we started dating, Elliot and I. But it was interesting because up until that point, I had only actually dated women, and I actually identified as a lesbian. And so when I started catching feelings for this boy, I was a little confused.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. What's happening?
So your parts are...
Yeah, I'm a little confused. You're just not my type. And by that I mean gender. So it was very confusing. Yeah. And it took a long time for me to be like, this is okay. Because a lot of my identity had been wrapped up in, that sexual orientation that I had identified with since I was 14. But, I just realized that I maybe like people regardless of their gender. I just had never met a man that I was attracted to. And I'm sure a lot of that does have to do with the power dynamics and the patriarchy that we live in. because I have a very huge problem with authority and awkward, uneven power dynamics really bother me. But I never felt that way with the Norton brothers. I never felt like I was not their equal. You know, I knew they respected what I was doing, and they would tell me they respected what I was doing, and they would treat me with respect. And so, you know, I just feel really blessed that they came into my life and that I get to share my life with, you know, my husband and his brother. We're all very tight. We create everything, you know, our film projects together, and I just love them deeply. And, you know, Elliot has been just a rock through my journey. You know, he and I have a very good relationship, a very respectful relationship. He used to be a social worker for like 4.5 years. And now he's a special ed teacher, you know, by day.
Oh, how awesome.
And so his emotional intelligence is like light years beyond a lot of people that I've met. And so the way we communicate is just super effective and very compassionate. And when it's not, we're able to recognize that. And so, you know, I am growing, he is growing, and at least right now where we're at in our relationship, we're able to support and have space for each other to grow together, which I'm really grateful for.
Wow. That is so beautiful. One thing I noticed when you sort of posted, when I had Facebook, and you both sort of, you know, were just sharing moments that you had together, I noticed how supportive he was of you, and how it almost kind of like he was just so excited to share that he's with you. And that struck out, even if it was just a picture, or there was just an openness there that was really lovely to see, because you could see that equal respect. You know what I mean? Like you're describing, that does come across, and it's rare. You don't, because those power dynamics do exist in a lot of relationships, regardless of whether they're conscious or unconscious. So it's always wonderful to see one where, you know, you're both coming together and working together as partners in that way. And that's something that I always admired, you know, in seeing your journey and how both of you just sort of post, because, you know, the algorithm, how it works, like if you like something, then it, you know, shows. So I'm able, without having to be friends with everybody, you could see all parts of their lives depending on what you liked. That's what would come up on the feed. And so, or just what you shared and what he commented on. And I just always thought that was just nice. It was cute, but not in a cliche cute kind of way. It was just nice.
Thank you.
Because it is. And it'd be nice to see more of that, you know, to see more sharing of that, or people coming together in that way more, you know, for that to be more normalized versus like a power dynamic. And that goes for all type of relationships, whether it's same-sex relationships or however that looks like. You know, however each person identifies.
No, absolutely. I think you make a good point, where those uneven power dynamics can happen in any, you know, type of relationship, any gender of relationships. I dated a lot of women where we had very uneven power dynamics, and it's not exclusive to male-female relationship at all. I think what it comes down to for me and Elliot, at least, is like, first and foremost, he's my best friend. Like, and I know that sounds cliche, but it's true.
But that's what makes it beautiful too.
And he's a staunch atheist, but he did tell me that I am his soulmate. So I consider that a win. He's like, I don't believe that we have souls, but there's no other word in the English language to describe this. So you are my soulmate. He's very...
That's fantastic. I love that. And atheists, I feel like sometimes they get such a bad rap because of not having this higher power that they look to, or, you know what I mean? And I say they as if they are an other. No. they are not an other. They are part of the whole as well. It's just looking at it from a different viewpoint. That's it. And I think it's fascinating. I enjoy hearing an atheist. I don't want to say they or as if it's an other. I always feel like it's categorizing them out here, and they're not out there. They're a part. But I enjoy hearing the perspective of how an atheist thinks, Yeah. That sounds weird. How can I put the language correctly? But
I do too. He definitely challenges me like intellectually a lot, which I need because I'm a very intellectual person and I can get bored really easily because of that. And so last night we were having this conversation about atheism actually. And he was just saying, he's a little bit older than me. He said, I was about your age when I realized that I am not in my body. I am my body. So a lot of people think of it as driving a spaceship, but I am the spaceship. And he said, I found that to be really freeing and liberating, but I can also understand why people need a higher power in their lives because that idea can be terrifying to some people. And he's just very accepting of where I'm at on my journey. Right now I do have a spiritual practice. I am praying. I am looking for signs and, praying for help because I need it, right now. Right. And he's very understanding of that, but he's also willing to maybe not challenge, but express another way of viewing the world, which I find to be just awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And then this is kind of a nice lead in with, since we're talking a little bit about power dynamic and, in relationships, as a female in the industry, or any service industry, regardless of where it is, just as your experience, how is your experience as just a female compared to that with your male counterparts, or even with, with your husband in terms of you guys have sort of a balance and an equal, but how when you two go out, how are you received? Are you received in that equal sort of way that you are together, right? Or is there sort of a difference in that? One, because of sort of the production company, but also, how does gender play a role in that too?
Yeah. When you were speaking that, my mind immediately went to, we do a lot of mixers and presentations or whatever, viewings of our projects together. And we do go out, and I do have writing credit and producing credit on a lot of our projects. I am so much an equal creator in a lot of our projects. He is our head writer, and I will say that he's a phenomenal writer, and I am literate, but I am not a writer. So I come up with ideas and I can, shit out a first draft, but he's really, you know what I mean? Yes, a writer. You're a poet, you're a writer. There's a difference.
I hear you.
And so, I do see when we go out to some of these events that he is definitely deferred to more. And I don't know if gender plays a role in that, or if it is the way I present myself and he presents himself in a crowd. But I just remember one time we were at an after party at a bar and we're there with other people in the community, and an old friend from high school comes up to me and a male comes up to me and grabs me around the waist. And it's like, hey, it's so good to see you. And I'm like, what's up? Oh, da, 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 da. And it's all cool. Like, we are fine, me and my friend from high school. But there's another individual in the crowd from this event we were at who is looking at me and looking at my husband, looking at me, looking at my husband. Like, are you going to get your woman in check? There's someone touching your woman right now. And I didn't notice this. Elliot noticed it.
Wow.
And so he came over and started talking to us like, oh, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And he's the one that expressed that to me later. And I was just so uncomfortable. I was like, I am not this gentleman's property. Like, and Elliot knows that. I'm a very independent person. Like, I will, and we respect each other. So there's no worries about crossing boundaries. So it's just very interesting. There's definitely a difference that I've experienced. And then, of course, what you hear a lot of, just the sexual assault, harassment, a lot of that negative attention that, of course, I've experienced a lot of. I'm sure most women have. And it's really hard to navigate that in a small film community when it happens within the community. I had an incident happen with an individual that works in the film community where I was assaulted by them sexually. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do at all. And I was so caught off guard and surprised because I trusted this person, which I'm sure is usually the scenario. And I was married and they knew I was married. And so it was just a very unfortunate situation. And I chose not to, put them on blast on social media for fear of, what it would do to my reputation, or people would think I'm just attention seeking, or, all the stigmas that go along with women who speak their truth. And so that was a very hard incident to overcome. And I still struggle with it.
And so how were you able, what did you do within yourself since calling that person out? You decided probably was not, and it's so unfortunate that we even have to think about those things. How is it going to impact? Because are they thinking that? No. Do they have to worry about that, or even have tone policing ourselves, making sure we don't, or too aggressive if we come across, that sort of thing. But so then how within yourself, how was that process of moving forward? Because I don't know if has healing occurred or is still in the process of occurring, and what do you have to do within, and have you come across that person since then? And then what does that look like in terms of how you're able to work through?
I think it's really interesting because I had a sexual assault happen when I was younger. Like a man broke into my home and violated me. And I was able to call the police 2 hours after it happened. And they were prosecuted and spent time in prison. And then this incident happened, and it was more recent. It was in 2017. And he was a white man, whereas my first perpetrator was Afghani, a refugee from Afghanistan. Wow. And I think that definitely played a part in why I didn't report the incident, because I think inherently I knew that it would do nothing but cause more trauma, because I had already been through one trial and it was not a walk in the park, even though our system, in that situation probably favored me because I'm a white woman. Let's just call it like it is. I understand that's probably why he was prosecuted. But this incident was with a white man, and I just knew that no one saw anything. It would be his word against mine. And I just wasn't willing to put myself through that trauma. And so I really it took a lot of processing. I think I'm still processing it. I haven't seen them since. And if I did, I don't know what I would do. It makes me ill to think about it. Yeah. But I was able to eventually, tell my husband and tell a really small few members in the community, call him out by name and just say, if you work with him, be careful. Do not hire him if you are in that position to do that. And just, and I haven't shared it with a lot of people. I maybe can count them on one hand, because there is a very real fear of backlash. Because I've seen it happen. I've seen women in the film community in Boise say things about other men and, get a Salem witch trial for speaking what happened. Yeah. And it's like, that's not worth it. Yeah. I will just warn the women close to me about what happened and warn maybe the bigger names in the industry so he doesn't get any more paid work.
Right.
And just, move on and never put myself in a position like that again. And I also rehearsed, because I read that it's good to get it in your body and your voice, what I could do if that situation happened again. So I definitely did the very traditional female thing of laughing it off, trying not to make it a big deal. You don't want to make them uncomfortable after I was assaulted.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And now I'm just like, I'm ready if that situation happens again. I have a plan. I have a script. I will perform the role,
Yes.
which is sad, but
That you even have, because it takes courage then to do it, to apply it, because of everything you just described, underneath, and what would be sometimes even standing up to that person, what that person does as a result of you standing up can be just as detrimental. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As not, or even speaking out or not saying anything, and it's such a fine line. And what's frustrating is that there is not an understanding from the opposite, the gender. I want to be careful not to say men as if I'm talking about all men. I'm not talking about all men. I'm talking specifically about those men that do those toxic behaviors and take advantage of those moments, knowing that they can get away with it. I'm talking about just to that specifically, because there are good men out there that can be allies with us. And I think it's so important that those allies step up with us and teach other men or call them out alongside us. So that way both the voices, resonate. Because that partnership has to be there in order for change to truly happen. As women, just ourselves, we can do a lot, but we can do even more if they would just step in with us and not take it personally that when someone says men, it's not referring to all men. It's referring to just those men.
Yeah.
Who just do, because there's a lot of them out there, unfortunately, and they've created such an environment that we're trying to navigate through. And the things that we have to think about just in tone policing and making sure we're approachable, but not too flirtatious. But then what if it's not flirtatious enough? Or, are they if they think misunderstanding our signals, and then having to make sure that they feel comfortable, just as you, sort of described. It's just, I don't know. I wonder how, small steps are being taken, but I wonder what would it look like if truly both, men and women just came together and in more numbers. There is a nice pocket of here and there, but just in more numbers coming up and backing each other up.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do, obviously, there's been studies done that show that rape and other sexual assaults are really due to, it's not a sexual thing, it's really power related. And so I think there's a lot of change that can be made, maybe in empowering both men and women in a truer sense. And then also, I really do think that a more comprehensive sex education system, where instead of just teaching women how to not get roofied, how to hold your drink while you're in the club, or to carry your keys in between your hands when you walk, or all of these tricks that our moms and our aunts and maybe even our dads taught us to not get raped. Right. Should we maybe be teaching young men, 12, 13, 14 years old, how not to rape women?
Yes.
Instead of this, sex is a secret. Either learn it from your parents, maybe if they tell you anything about it, right, or learn it from pornography,
which is very unhealthy
and glorifies rape culture. Yeah. It's like, when we ask ourselves, why are these problems occurring? It's a systemic problem that stems from sex education or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. I didn't get sex education until I was 18, and I was in like a not a school environment, obviously. And I was finally taught about STDs and condoms and all of these racy things.
taboo to
Ugh.
speak of them.
And it's just like, this is causing teen pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, STDs, rape, and probably a myriad of other issues that I'm not even cognizant of.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me think what you're saying, that I saw it both on Twitter, and I want to say I saw it once on Facebook, or maybe it was Instagram, where the question was put out: if men did not exist, what would you do for a day? It was posed out to women. And the highest response was go jogging at night, or just go out freely without worrying about, what you have to like watch out for and just be cognizant of, and it's just, I don't know, that's interesting.
I mean, I think most women can attest to the fact that, at least me personally, I've been followed in the grocery store. I've been followed downtown at night. I've been followed, in a club. There are very real predatorial behaviors that women experience and that don't get talked about. I never talk about this, ever. Because there is shame. There is shame about, well, what am I doing so wrong that this is happening to me? That very like victim blame mindset that's just like ingrained in me, at least personally.
Yeah, no, I think that's across the board, because you hear that often. What you're saying pops up. I remember a conversation with my friend. She's broken up with me since, but at the time we were really good friends, and we were talking about rape and what if, what if it happened to our daughters, and, heaven forbid, or, just playing out scenarios. And, she immediately went to, well, better not make sure to wear something. What if, she's doing, I'm like, well, why are we putting it on them? It doesn't matter what she's wearing. She's not wearing that to invite, but because that has been set out there as an intention, spoken for the woman, instead of allowing the woman to speak for herself of why she's wearing what she's wearing, because she freaking feels good about herself.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean she wants someone coming up her pants.
Yeah.
Or forcing herself. But it's also this idea that goes back to that power dynamic you mentioned, where sex is not about sex, it's about power. Because there is still that difference of where it is expected that women are here, for the pleasure of men, or for in some way men, because of that good old, woman was taken from the Adam's rib.
Yeah.
And created. And if we really kind of look at it a little bit, we'll find that, it's maybe just a bit different. It's not quite, and who wrote it and why. And I don't know, questions should be asked there, I feel like.
I think so.
But in your experience, how, with it happening recently, how also was it for Elliot with you and him? So how was that for the both of you? You having to deal and deciding this is the way that I want to go, and then how did he sort of respond to that choice and support you?
Yeah, it was a really hard conversation, and I felt he was very angry. Naturally, yeah. I was pretty angry too. I felt more violated, but I think he shared that with me because he loves me, and I don't want to say I'm an extension of him, but we are very close. And so he felt very full of rage and pretty seriously was asking where this gentleman worked and things like that. And like any person naturally would, when you hear this news, I thought the same exact thing. Yeah. And, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's sad. Yeah. But there were a lot of tears shed. And, at the end of the day, he expressed to me, it's your story. It's your assault. Whatever you choose to do, I will be here to support you. I did think about going to the police. because that's what I did my first time. And he said, okay, if you want to go through with that, I will be there every step of the way. I will be there. I will hold your hand. I will be your shoulder to cry on. I will be there with you, whatever you want to do. And that allowed me the space to make my own decision, because I do think I can look outside myself for what's best for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I hear you.
But he gave me the space and really didn't weigh in other than saying, I'm here. And that's what I needed. And I just, over the course of about 3 weeks, came to understand that I wanted to warn other women that I saw on social media working with him, because I didn't want anyone else to get hurt. But I didn't want to put myself through trying to prosecute a, middle-class white man in a he said, she said scenario. It just wasn't worth the trauma, because I know that I would not have been believed. And I didn't want to put them on blast on social media because it felt gratuitous. And I didn't really want people to know that had happened also, because I felt disgusting.
That shame that you described.
Yeah. But I was able to, like I said, tell, I was doing a project. I just finished a performance, and I was able to tell that director, and, certain things transpired where this individual is not welcome in this area anymore. And I was able to tell some, people like I mentioned earlier. And so I haven't seen or heard from them since. But Elliot did run into them once after.
And so what did that look like?
There was a lot of emotions on his end.
Yeah.
He, it's very interesting how, people, not just men, me too, want to meet violence with violence. That's very real human instinct. But, he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He just, did not engage.
But I can't imagine. I even as a female, I can't imagine what he felt.
Yeah.
The restraint he probably had to have to not act and respond in whichever way he really probably wanted to.
Yeah. And the way that I heard it, at least from an individual that was also there, is once that this perpetrator saw my husband there, they left.
Wow.
Because they knew.
Yeah.
They knew what happened was wrong. It's not something that's up for debate.
Yeah. And since then, did he become more protective for a little while? Was he worried a little bit more when you went on set or projects, or just out, just in general? Did you find he was checking in maybe just to make sure everything's okay? Maybe a little bit extra because of a higher vigilance,
Yeah, well, he was definitely the one that encouraged me to practice what would happen if anything like this happened again. So we rehearsed it together. And
wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's an action-oriented rationalist. So he knew that he couldn't be there to protect me in every situation. I'm a very independent person. And so he just said, you need to get this in your body. It's like, let's just practice it. And I want you to pretend that I'm this person and this just happened. What are you going to say? Like, practice what you're going to do, your physicalities, and we just rehearsed it in our living old house. And it's so sad that we had to do that, but it's also freaking cool that he would give me those tools.
Yeah, and be there with you to practice. I would love to see shorts of that. I think that would be so awesome. The first thing as you described it, I was like, where's the reel? I need to see this so I can share it and learn myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I did think about creating that content after it happened.
Oh my gosh, that would be, I would love to, if you did end up, taking this and be like, oh, maybe I think that would be so awesome to see both of you, because it's, again, that partnership. You're showing so many things there. The partnership that you have, his support,
and how he's trying to navigate with you through all of this. And you're trying to take something that was just really not good and just, traumatizing, and sort of create it as an opportunity to sort of share and learn, meaning give some tools, learn yourself, but also, pass it on.
Maybe be of service.
Yes.
Giving me ideas.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'd be like, where's the multiple like button? Why is it just once? It only hearts when it's like live or something. Then you can be like, no, I need it. So that way, every time she opens it, like bursts out in hearts.
I love it.
They need to recreate that,
Yes. I would use that all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I love live feeds. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I am just so grateful that you, again, are open and allowing the space to share that vulnerability, because I just think it's so important, and I feel very blessed that you feel comfortable enough to be able to share all of these moments that are so important, and that need to be spoken. And that's one of the goals with this podcast, is to begin normalizing that it's okay to talk about it, because we're not talking about it in a way to pull down or to be a woe is me. Sharing the story allows others to connect, so that way to empower. The whole goal is to empower. And I just feel like this is such an opportunity to empower.
I agree.
Through what you're willing and open to share. And I am just so grateful for that. It fills my heart so much that you trust, are trusting just this space, to do that. So,
well, thank you for providing this space for the community. I think it's really important for women to be able to share their stories. And like you said, just share their experience with other people. I mean, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're alone. And there's no bigger fallacy in the world, because there's so many people that share our struggles or adjacent struggles. And I hope to be able to open myself more to the world and to others around me in hopes to help another struggling human being.
Yes.
Because it's no fun.
Yes.
To do it alone.
I hear you. That's such a feeding the soul. And then that kind of leads into our last few questions here, which is then how can we empower sort of women to come together, right? Because there's a lot of times where, and it makes me think of many stories that I've heard from women of color, specifically Black women, where Gabrielle Union, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. She talked about how because there were so few Black female roles, that they end up being in competition with each other. So it created sort of a mean girl type of scenario. And she called herself out on it and had that self-reflection. That makes me think just women in general, we kind of do that because our roles are we don't get as much time as male counterparts in majority of the movies. That is slowly changing. So I always want to make sure to acknowledge that. But how do we then sort of not just empower women, but then also how can we bring that community together, so that way we're championing each other and not shifting the competition to encouraging. And even though, yes, we aren't competing for the same role, but how can we be happy for each other? How can we embrace and celebrate together, and all of those things?
Yeah.
How do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's like twofold where my mind's at least. Like, firstly, one of my best friends is also an actress, and we are in the same typecast. We've worked on 2 projects together in the years that we've known each other, because we are very similarly aged and looks and things like this, at least for the limited roles that are available. We don't really look that similar, but we go out for a lot of the same roles. And I don't know how or why or what cosmic force caused it, but we both are constantly encouraging each other and like helping each other, giving each other positive feedback, and you know, she'll ask me, how can I better prep for this situation? And I'll ask her, hey, what do you think about this? And it's, you know, we went out for a pretty big project a couple months ago for the same role. And the casting director called us in for the same role. And we both worked our little butts off to get this role. It was a big project. And she got a call back and I did not. And I was so devastated for myself. And I allowed myself 7 hours to be absolutely devastated. And then after that point, I called her and I was like, congratulations. What can I do to help you prepare? Like, you're going to slay this. And it's just like, you can be sad for yourself maybe, or a little disappointed, but you can't necessarily be precious about an audition. And I think it's so much more important to support the women in your life or the people in your life. Mm-hmm. So that's where my mind goes for that, and just connecting with your community. And then also, you know, especially for people of color, women of color, and helping, you know, giving a space or having a space to have these voices heard. In my experience, what I'm choosing to do at BSU next semester, there is a play that is mainly Latinx casting. But in the casting breakdown, it said, hey, ideally, we would like the people to be, you know, Latinx, but we'll consider other ethnicities if we don't get enough turnout. And I just thought, absolutely not. This is a story written in the Latin community, you know, should be portrayed by Latinx people. And so I'm choosing not to audition. I don't feel like I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for me to help build the set, to help, you know, do hair and makeup, to take another role in the theater and allow a space for these stories to be told by these people of color. It's not all about me. How can I be of service to tell this story in the best way? And so I think what a lot of us maybe should do is take a step back and say, is this appropriate? Do I need to do this? Is there another way I can service this project in a better way? Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's not all the answers. It's a very complex problem.
And I'm taking a drink because what you're saying is just landing. Again, it's that, like, it's making me tear up. Like, I love what you're saying. It's just beautiful. I don't know why it's making me emotional. It's so weird.
It's not weird.
But I think you're hitting on something just very true. It's like helping each other. It's the acknowledgement of yourself, first and foremost, which you need to do with how you're feeling in that moment. You know, if you're devastated or whatnot, it's important to acknowledge that and not put it aside, is what I'm hearing. But then, you know, you have to, okay, well, I'm acknowledging it. And you can continue acknowledging it while being happy for the other person. It's like, how can we begin to educate that process? How can we begin applying it ourselves? Because it does start with, you know, ourselves doing that.
Yeah.
But then how can then we spread that word, and how can we bring in, you know, mentor those more young females or each other, you know, in that sort of way. And I just think it's beautiful, and I don't know why it's landing so just emotional. It's very surprising.
No, it's totally normal.
So yeah, but yeah, I think that's not just a fresh take, but a very relevant and appropriate, very smart way to do it, you know, especially with allowing the space for, again, it's just so surprising how emotional it's landing. It's just, wow. And very unexpected. I wasn't expecting that. But also taking, you know, how can you go and be of service in a different way on set, you know, and allow the space for, you know, the sort of the story from the Latin perspective, Latinos perspective, and allow then that, you know, and then how can then that generate, because for me right now, I'm just thinking too, how can we get more diverse females on set too? A diverse looking female, not just of skin color, but of size. That for me is really important and big right now, because I know when I go out, mine, for me, it's very few, and I have privilege. I recognize I have privilege and might even get cast over, you know, a smaller, or depending on the particular project. But if I'm going up against my white female peers, I automatically assume I'm not going to be chosen.
Yeah.
You know, because of my size, or because of how I look, or, you know, coming across as a conservative, there's that immediate, you know, judgment occurring right when they walk in. It's like, let the performance speak before you decide, you know?
Yeah.
But I just think, wow, how can then we take what you just said and expand it to even more, you know? So I just think that, yeah.
And I think also, you know, it's definitely the job of the director and the casting director to educate themselves and to maybe question their own prejudices, their own internal biases, because we all have them. I have them, you know, we all have them. And it's accepting that and confronting those internal biases that's going to lead to a more diverse and inclusive environment. And so, you know, we as actors or storytellers, we can only really control ourselves, but I gently encourage anyone in a position of, you know, directing or casting to also, you know, look inward at their own internal biases and see how can we enrich our storytelling with more humanity? Because humanity doesn't come in one size, one shape, one color. That's what's so cool about it.
Very true, very true. At the human level, it's that take it down to the bare, like how you know, you described earlier, just being in that very authentic and present, you know, sort of self, type of thing. And I just think, the practice of that. How can we begin doing that? And I feel like what you're saying makes me think, well, then how can women come together, more women in those projects? And how can we come together, those who do the writing, then bring those who do the acting, bring the directors? And I still feel like there's still a hesitance there. There might be a desire, you know, like me trying to do this podcast. I'd love to do more. I want to do more with women in terms of coming together and writing something. I would love to, there's just story there, and I want to write it, and I want us to come together and create it. And it doesn't mean it's only with female exclusive and no men, but I mean just more of just how can we get even more, because there's like Findlay Productions, and she's, you know, I follow her, and I think I love, you know, everything she's creating, and how can we get more, you know, sort of that, where it can be embraced and accepted.
Well, you know, this is kind of totally off the cuff. I was thinking about this similar thing about like a month or two ago, and just really thinking, God, how many great women do we have in this community, and how schismed are we, or how, you know, separated are we really? You know, and we all, I'm sure for the most part, generally speaking, follow each other and like each other's posts and have a respect for each other. But when's the last time we were all in a room together? I don't know, never. And so I was thinking to myself, how cool would it be to have like a collaborative, creative learning experience where you get like however many women want to come, you like rent a space or a cabin or a retreat area, whatever the capacity calls for. And each woman brings a session, a workshop of whatever the heck they want to do. You know, like for me, it would probably be like script work, because I love doing script work. I think I'm good at it, and I feel like I can help people with that. But maybe, you know, someone else is super good at fight choreography or writing or you know, other things. And it's like, I just feel like we have so much to learn from each other. And more than that, I would love an opportunity to connect. That's all. You know, this past year has been so lonely, so disconnected. And I think we could all just use an opportunity to connect. But it's like, when's the right time for that? When are people comfortable getting together? You know, it's so anyways.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. When you say that, it gets me so excited. The first thing I think is, how can we start this, and when are we going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is exactly, I think, would only just bring the community together. And if we can just come to and see, come with that open mind and address our own biases or whatever, do that internal work, and then come. That way we can just create that supportive community.
Right.
I think it could be so powerful. So many great stories can be told, and then I think that it can all come together. Like, again, it does come down to, I think both men and women have to be able to come together and work together. And that's where the true power will be, is when we don't have to be separate like that it can be completely inclusive, and it doesn't have to be 50-50. It's just that minds coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. That creative hive mind. Mm-hmm. I love it.
If I would love to continue that conversation, I want to hear more of what you're thinking on that, maybe outside of this. Because I just think that's a wonderful idea.
Good. I know that I couldn't plan it alone, so I need help. And I've reached out to 2 other women in the community, and they have some personal stuff right now that is a little hairy, but I would love to continue the conversation after.
Well, I don't have any personal stuff, and the first thing I think is, how can I be of service to you?
Oh, she gets it.
What can I do to, help you and contribute and do all of that? How can I be of service? I love that. Service to, each other and show up and be there. So.
So important.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation.
Heck yes. Me too.
Yes. And then, okay. So then that leads in to our sort of kind of wrap up with this beautiful, beautiful conversation that I'm just loving today. Is then how can we extend that? So women coming together and us empowering each other, but then how then can we bring in the men? How can we draw them in? How can we teach them to teach others to support us? How can all of that happen, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really tricky question, because immediately I just think how do we teach anyone anything? Really? Mm-hmm. In my experience, I have only changed my perspective when I wanted to and when I was ready to.
Right.
And maybe sometimes that takes years. Mm-hmm. And so, I would love to have a really easy answer to how do we, have men view us as equals and teach them to, be allies. But I don't know that that's our job. As women, I don't think it's our responsibility to teach men to view us as equals or to treat us with respect. I think that is their responsibility, because really at the end of the day, the only thing I have control over is myself. Mm-hmm. And so what I can choose to do is show up authentically, show up present, and show up wholeheartedly. And if someone chooses to respect that or not, that's on them. That's a reflection of who they are, not a reflection of who I am. And in my experience, I am super selective with my inner circle. I have a very small amount of close people in my life, and I choose to keep them there because they respect me and they fulfill my life and they bring me joy. Mm-hmm. And we can challenge each other and grow together. And so I guess if there's someone in my life, because there happen, that don't respect me, especially because of something so trivial as my gender or my sexual orientation or whatever it might be, they get the axe. They are no longer allowed to have contact with my energy, whether it's a job or a family member or an acquaintance. I am not willing to sacrifice my peace of mind for anyone. So if you're in my life, it's because you're awesome.
Awesome. Yes. That is the perfect way to just The end. That's just like awesome. And like that cannot be topped.
Mic drop.
Yep, mic drop. I'm gonna get that sound effect right when you say mic drop. I'm gonna insert that in like, and do like the visual. I'm gonna get a little fancy with this animation in this particular video. See, and you even gave that perfect, so now I know exactly where to put it. I don't have to say it. And so see how you're totally helping me be able to.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh gosh, this has been so amazing and beautiful, and you made me cry. And this is just feed the soul, session and podcast episode. So I'm so grateful that you came today, Zoe. Thank you so much for being part of this and being on this journey too, and sharing your story and being vulnerable. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.